Right now, 3 countries positioned along 3 completely separate stretches of the Pacific Ring of Fire are each reporting seismic behavior their own scientists are calling genuinely unusual. And the natural question everyone watching wants answered is whether these 3 patterns are connected, or whether the planet is simply doing what it has always done, just louder this year. In Japan, a magnitude 7.7 earthquake off the Sanriku coast in April triggered the country's first formal megaquake advisory of the year, followed by months of continued elevated seismicity along the same stretch of coastline. In Chile, seismologists are tracking a coastal segment where stress has accumulated to levels they say make a magnitude 8 earthquake increasingly plausible sometime in 2026, even as the country has already logged multiple magnitude 6 and 7 earthquakes since January. And in Indonesia, a magnitude 6.4 earthquake struck near Pacitan in East Java in February, a section of the Sunda subduction zone that has historically been considered far quieter than neighboring Sumatra, killing 1 person and damaging dozens of buildings across 4 separate provinces. Today, we're going to break down exactly what is happening in each of these 3 locations, whether any of it is genuinely connected, and what the real seismological science says about whether this is actually unusual or simply business as usual for the most active fault network on the planet. No exaggeration, no doomsday guessing, just the data, the monitoring reports, and the real stakes. Drop a comment right now. Have you ever felt an earthquake in Japan, Chile, or Indonesia, or lived somewhere else along the Ring of Fire? Tell me where you were. So many of you write in from all 3 of these countries, and I read every single one of those comments. If you want to know the moment anything changes at any of these 3 locations, subscribe right now. It costs nothing, and a thumbs up tells the algorithm to put this in front of the people who genuinely need to see it. Let us get into it. Let us start with Japan, because what happened there this year set off a specific formal warning system most people outside the country have never heard of. On April 20th, a magnitude 7.7 earthquake struck off the Sanriku coast in northeastern Japan, close enough to the same subduction zone that produced the catastrophic 2011 Tohoku disaster that Japanese authorities immediately activated what is called a megaquake advisory, a formal government communication stating that the short-term probability of a subsequent magnitude 8 or larger earthquake had temporarily risen from a normal background rate of roughly 0.1% up to about 1%, a tenfold increase. That advisory prompted residents across 182 towns and 7 prefectures to review evacuation routes as a precaution. What has continued since then is a steady drumbeat of smaller but persistent seismic activity along the same general stretch of coastline, magnitude 4 and 5 earthquakes striking repeatedly through May, June, and July near Iwate Prefecture, along with a magnitude 6 earthquake off the coast in early July, and continued activity spreading south toward Wakayama and even down toward the Ryukyu Islands near Kagoshima. None of these individual events after the April quake have approached the size of the original rupture, but Japanese seismologists monitor exactly this kind of sustained distributed aftershock activity closely, because it reflects a fault system still actively redistributing stress across a wide area rather than settling immediately back into background behavior. Now to Chile, a country whose entire western coastline sits directly above the Nazca Plate subducting beneath the South American plate, one of the most seismically productive boundaries on Earth. This year alone, Chile has recorded a magnitude 6.3 earthquake off Atacama in March, a magnitude 6.9 event near Antofagasta in May that briefly disrupted mining operations in the region, and a cluster of magnitude 5 earthquakes near La Liga in July, on top of routine background seismicity that never fully stops along this coastline. What has drawn particular scientific attention is longer-term monitoring, suggesting that certain coastal fault segments have now accumulated sufficient stress to be capable of generating an earthquake of magnitude 8 or larger, based on historical rupture patterns and the amount of time that has passed since these specific segments last released their stored tectonic energy. Chilean emergency response agencies have responded by intensifying preparedness drills and reviewing supply stockpiles, treating this assessment the way seismologists everywhere treat elevated stress estimates, as a probability shift worth preparing for, not a specific prediction of exactly when or if a major rupture will occur. And now Indonesia, where the most notable event this year struck in a location that made regional seismologists sit up specifically because of where it happened rather than how large it was. On February 6th, a magnitude 6.4 earthquake, as measured by Indonesia's own geophysics agency BMKG, struck offshore near Pacitan in East Java, at a shallow depth with a thrust fault mechanism. The earthquake killed 1 person, injured at least 47 others, and damaged at least 69 buildings across Pacitan, Trenggalek, Ponorogo, Blitar, and reached as far as the special region of Yogyakarta and central Java, with tremors felt as distant as Bali. What makes this earthquake scientifically noteworthy is a detail seismologists have documented for years. The Java section of the Sunda subduction zone has historically been considered relatively quiet compared to the intensely active Sumatra section further west, even though both site along the exact same tectonic boundary. A significant, damaging earthquake striking specifically in this comparatively quieter section is exactly the kind of event that draws close scientific attention, not because it broke any global record, but because it activated a segment of the fault system that typically produces far less seismicity than its neighbor. So here's the honest scientific question worth asking when three different countries, sitting on three entirely separate sections of the same enormous tectonic system, all report notably active seismic behavior within the same general year. Is the Ring of Fire itself becoming more active, or are these three genuinely independent systems simply doing what sections of this belt have always done on their own separate schedules, with global monitoring simply making all three visible to the rest of the world simultaneously? The tectonic answer is unambiguous. Japan sits where the Pacific Plate subducts beneath the Okhotsk microplate along the Japan Trench. Chile sits where the Nazca Plate subducts beneath the South American Plate along a completely different trench thousands of kilometers away. And Indonesia sits where the Indo-Australian Plate subducts beneath the Sunda Plate along yet another distinct trench system entirely. These three subduction zones do not communicate with each other in any direct physical sense. There is no shared fault, no mechanical connection transmitting stress from one system to another across such vast distances. What connects them is simply that all three sit somewhere along the same roughly 25,000-mile arc, responsible for the overwhelming majority of the planet's earthquakes. Meaning multiple sections of that arc showing significant activity within the same calendar year is a statistically expected outcome of how much of Earth's total seismic energy this one belt releases every single year, not evidence that the entire Ring of Fire has somehow synchronized into a new, more dangerous phase. If you live in or near any of these three regions, here is what is actually worth understanding right now. In Japan, treat any megaquake advisory as exactly what it is, a temporary statistical elevation in probability, not a prediction, and use the window to confirm your evacuation route and household emergency kit rather than to panic. In Chile, take your region's standard earthquake preparedness seriously year-round, since this is a country where readiness is built into daily infrastructure and culture, precisely because major earthquakes here are a matter of when, not if, regardless of any single year's specific stress assessment. In Indonesia, recognize that a quieter historical record for a specific stretch of coastline, like Java compared to Sumatra, does not mean that section is incapable of a significant earthquake, only that they occur there less frequently, and building codes and personal preparedness should reflect the region's overall subduction zone risk rather than its shorter-term seismic history alone. Final thought. Japan, Chile, and Indonesia are giving us three genuinely separate case studies happening within the same general stretch of time, one country still working through the aftershock sequence of an earthquake, significant enough to trigger a formal government advisory. One country watching accumulated stress on a specific coastal segment reach levels that make a major rupture increasingly plausible, and one country absorbing a damaging earthquake in a section of its own subduction zone that has historically stayed quieter than its neighbor. None of this proves the Ring of Fire has entered some new, more dangerous global phase. What it proves is that on any given year, this 25,000-mile arc is doing exactly what it has always done across its enormous length. And modern monitoring now lets the entire world watch every part of it in near real time, instead of learning about distant earthquakes only when a rare one made international news. We will keep tracking every aftershock in Japan, every stress assessment out of Chile, and every update from BMKG in Indonesia as this story develops. Subscribe so you do not miss it, and leave that comment below. Have you ever lived through or witnessed seismic activity in any of these three specific countries? Because these are not just headlines, they are the daily reality tracked by seismologists working around the clock across three completely different stretches of the same ocean basin. Let us get this one to 5,000 likes. See you in the next one.